So for the last, I don't know who was there for like the last time I talked about 10 a.m. key open, but I wanted to redo the lecture because I didn't like how I explained it, and I was gonna film that separately anyways, but I was also gonna do a trade recap for today's 10 a.m. key open, and I thought, okay, why not just break down the concept and do a trade recap of it playing out today. So that's what we're gonna talk about. It's just gonna be a 10 a.m. key open, and I'm gonna do a little trade recap. So here, let me share my screen. I took this on demo today, and let's get right into it. So this trade was an 18 RR of 10 a.m. key open, and this is honestly one of the best examples of it that I could find because I was kind of like when I was going to re-record the video or the lecture, I was kind of looking for examples, and honestly it doesn't play out all the time, but when it does, it just goes crazy. And as you guys can see right here, it went crazy today. So 10 a.m. key open is basically just the opening price of the 10 a.m. candle. So right here we had this bullish candle, and it opens right here obviously, so the bottom of the body would be the 10 a.m. key open. And a few things to note about the key open is that number one, you want to mark out like wherever the open is, so you can't mark like the top of this candle, like this body. It has to be exactly where it opens. So right here we open, and the second thing is that it needs to have some type of wick, so it can't have like a very small wick. So like here it was a 12-point wick, which is honestly perfect, but 10 a.m. key open should have maybe like ideally I'd say an 8 to 20 point wick. So here we had a 12-point wick, which is honestly like the perfect amount. So that's the two things to form a good 10 a.m. key open first. And how do you actually trade it? So something that you guys need to know first is AMD, or also the 4-hour power of 3. So let me just pull that up me here. So 4-hour power of 3, as you guys know, it's accumulation, manipulation, distribution in a 4-hour candle. So we have the open, low, high, close. And the entire kind of idea of this concept is that when 10 a.m. opens and we form that wick, that's going to be the bottom wick for the entire 4-hour candle. So you can expect to enter off of here and then catch the entire move up. And that's basically what you're aiming for. And there's a few things that you need to look out for to actually make sure that you're catching a high probability 10 a.m. key open setup, because it doesn't work all the time. But today was a great example, and I'm going to break down exactly how I took this trade. So first we open, and obviously we have a little bit of a move up, but we start accumulating. Now this accumulation, it was a pretty big accumulation. It lasted about an hour. So I wanted to see manipulation, and honestly I was about to get off here, but we started trading towards the downside. And if you guys notice, this 10 a.m. key open did not get tagged into yet. Also, we still had a draw above here, which was true day open, so midnight open. And we never tagged into that, which I wanted to see earlier in the day. So the idea is we have an accumulation, and then we form our manipulation leg. That automatically makes it super high probability, because before tagging into a 10 a.m. key open, you ideally want to see an accumulation and then a manipulation into that key open. So right here we get that huge manipulation leg down, and we tag into it, and this was my first entry. And then again we go up, and notice here we start accumulating again. That was an even better sign. So I had my stop to break even at this point. So I got break even, but I re-entered right away because this was another manipulation leg. We had a smaller AMD, And then if you marked out anything like standard deviation, you can see the target aligned perfectly with standard deviation if you anchored it on that manipulation leg. So that made it even higher probability. And boom, we tag into 10 a.m. key open. You want to have your entry right where it starts and then stop loss right at the bottom of the wick. So right there. And just a quick note, you can actually you can use the quadrants. So this is just a FIP setting marking out like 25%, 50, 75, 100%. You could use that to get an even better entry, but sometimes you can risk like losing out on the trade. But usually I would just enter at the body to be safe. But if you really want an even better entry, because for example, in this scenario, we didn't quite tag into the 50%, but we did tag into the 25%. So if you entered at the body instead, like right where it opens, but you entered at the 25% instead, look how much your RR goes up by, like, how many points is that? That's literally like a 3-4 point difference. And your RR goes up by, how much was that? Like, yeah, it goes from 18 to 24, which is insane. That's a 6 RR extra. So if you risked 100 and your TP was, wait, no, sorry. If you risked 100, that would be an extra 600 on the trade just by having a entry that's 4 points earlier. So you can use this quadrant fib to kind of decide where you want to enter. Personally, I just like to keep it safe, so I'll always enter exactly where the 10 a.m. key open starts. But yeah, it's up to you guys if you want to risk missing out on the trade for better RR, or just playing it safe and entering the trade early, but obviously you sacrifice some RR. So when you enter off a 10 a.m. key open as well, you do want to target some type of higher time frame draw, or not higher time frame draw. You can target like the top of the accumulation, or maybe some type of key level, so like a PD array, or maybe a high that formed even within that 4-hour candle. So like when I entered this, my original target was here. I did move it up a little bit to true day open because I thought maybe if we keep up with this momentum, we could just continue higher on the day, or at least for the 4-hour candle. And that's what we ended up doing. We traded back all the way up. Again, you could use standard deviation to kind of align your targets. So like I did before, as you guys can see, the 2.5 is perfectly aligned. Wait, right there. Yeah, 2.5 is basically perfectly aligned with. So, honestly, sometimes it doesn't happen, like where there's an AMD that'll form into the key open. And I'll show an example of it not happening and still playing out, because sometimes there won't be an accumulation manipulation distribution. Sometimes it'll just be like it'll form and then it'll go right off the bat. But it just makes it a lot better if there's an accumulation and then a manipulation into that key open. And that's what makes it much higher probability. But I'll show an example of it, maybe like an example of 10 a.m. key open without an accumulation and then a manipulation. But you always want to look out for it. And to be honest, it's kind of like this concept, I feel like it takes a lot of discretion because it's not very mechanical. You won't see the same thing happen whenever there's a 10 a.m. key open every day. Like sometimes it'll form a very long wick, maybe reject off of something, and then we tag back into it and then it continues. Or sometimes it'll be like this, where we set the bottom wick of the 4-hour and then manipulate into that key open and then continue higher. So speaking of that, right there, so we have that 10 a.m. key open. So it opens right here, 12-point wick. Honestly, to this, hold on, I'm gonna go on replay just so I don't lose it when I go on a higher time frame. Okay, so this is actually a really good example. So another way a 10 a.m. key open could work is if we don't form like an AMD, then it could be formed off of a rejection. So that wick could be classified as a rejection block if it rejects off of something. So for example here, we did end up rejecting off of this 15-minute gap, and it doesn't exactly happen at 10 a.m., but we do start trading lower. Ideally, if it's going to be off a rejection, 10 a.m. or relatively some like a few minutes before or after should reject off of some type of key level. So here we tagged into this 15-minute gap, and then we start trading down. 10 a.m. opens up, and this doesn't form our rejection wick since this wick didn't tag into that 15-minute gap. Let me see, maybe we got some type of other tag. I mean, honestly, like, this 5-minute, you could classify as a rejection block in itself, because we formed a wick after that. So that 10 a.m. wick tags into the consequent encroachment of that 5-minute rejection block. So that's how you could have played this example out. So right here, again, I'm going to go over it one more time in case nobody caught that. So before 10 a.m. opened up, we tag into this 15-minute fair value gap, and then we form a big wick. So that forms a rejection block. Scale down, 10 a.m. opens up and hits the consequent encroachment of that rejection block, which is ideally like the best place for entry off of a rejection block. And then after that, you want to see an entry off of that key open. So right here, you could have used the quadrants. Since this is kind of like honestly, this is actually a really good example. We had a 12-point wick. So right here, you could have gone in an entry off the 50%, had your stop right at the top of the wick. And then obviously these trades are super scary because you have a 6-point stop loss here. So that wicked literally not even a point away from stopping out, but then we continue down. So these trades are really scary. Like they really test people sometimes, but again, that's like the person who teaches the concept says that that's like the best type of trades if they're scary, but there's nothing to worry about. It's a 6-point stop anyway, so if you get stopped, like, no, it's not really that important. But as you can see, we hit that key open. If you entered off the 50% or even like the actual open, we hit the consequent encroachment of that rejection block again, and then we just rally down. Like, look, boom, hit the full target and even continued way lower, continued all the way down there. I actually remember this trade. I remember looking at this and I watched this setup play. This is actually funny. I took this trade, but I took it on the wrong direction. And I took it for buys by accident because I thought that we fully wicked past the top wick. Yeah, I don't know what happened that day, but I remember this exact trade. I just saw the RR and I remember looking at this setup and I was like, what the fuck? Because it just ran without me. Like I caught the longs here. It was a really like a small entry. I think it was like 50% or the 75% of here. And then I literally targeted for like here, got stopped out around here because I trailed pretty hard. So it's like a 3 RR trade, but then this 40 RR trade shows up out of nowhere, and then yeah. But this was a really good example. I remember seeing this. Yeah, it was great. We had a good PD array, good key level tapped into, formed a rejection block. 10 a.m. opens, forming that wick, rejecting off the consequent encroachment of that rejection block, and then boom, insane target down here. Presented 40 RR. This was a very ideal trade. Yeah, that every single time 10 a.m. key open plays out, it just displaces. It doesn't like it doesn't happen slowly. Like even today's example, I'll go back to it one more time. But I just want to show like you could risk like $30, like 3 cons down, risk $30, and then your TP could be 1400. So that's if you took this, like obviously this is kind of cherry picked. Like maybe chances are that you like people would have probably entered off of just the body, and that would have been 20 RR. So we'll just do that as an example. But if you put like 5 cons down, that's like a $200 risk for $2,400 take profit, which is insane. It's crazy. This is a crazy concept. When it plays out, it prints. Like it doesn't, it just takes off. So that's why I always like looking out for them. But yeah, that's about it for 10 a.m. key open. Yeah, I was gonna show one more thing. Yeah, so for this one, at first we didn't get displacement, but then we kind of just got the pattern accumulation manipulation, and then once we got that re-entry into 10 a.m. key open, we just rally up. So that was kind of new to me today, because I seen this, and then once I saw that accumulation, I kind of just put the two together, and that's honestly a tip that I can give now, is that if it ever does end up happening where we tag into that key open and then start accumulating, you can maybe expect a re-entry into there, and that's the only reason I re-entered. I wouldn't have gotten back into this trade if it wasn't for that accumulation, and then we get a strong manipulation to the downside, and then hits the target. But yeah, that's about it for this lecture.